Okay, I think we can start now. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to take a little bit of time to thank our sponsors. Typically, I would suggest that you visit us at our booths, but since this is a virtual conference, I would suggest that you take some time and look us up online and see some of the great products and services that we're offering for Microsoft Project. A little bit about myself. Daniel McDonald, Director of Development at C020 Project Solutions. And for a good part of my career, at least the last 20 years or so, I've been working in a variety of roles on the Microsoft development platforms. And during that time, I had the opportunity to work on several solutions involving Project Server, Microsoft Project on your desktop, and now, of course, Project Online. And that's led me to my current role, which is leading the apps initiative at C020 Project Solutions. We were thrilled, really thrilled, to have been named the Microsoft Partner of the Year in 2014 for Project and Portfolio Management, and then to be again named one of the finalists in 2015. There's four main areas of our business. We do services, so traditional Microsoft PPM deployments, ongoing support. We have solutions such as our Jumpstart and report packs, as well as our Agile PPM. We do in-classroom training, computer-based training, and we have some best practice books. But the part of the business that I'm focused on and that I want to talk about today is our work with apps for Microsoft Project. Today I'm going to share some of the experience we had building apps for Microsoft Project. We and a number of other project partners have been producing apps that are available in the Office Store or in the various mobile stores for Apple, Android, or Windows Phone. Typically, the goal of each of these apps is to address the needs of the individual project stakeholder, whether that be your project manager, your PMO, or your team member. However, the overall goal is to create a suite of applications that enhance the experience for everyone using Microsoft Project. We are striving to make applications for everyone in your organization and to make these those applications available globally, i.e., we are striving to make Microsoft Project more accessible to everyone. We as project partners are committed to addressing the needs of all project stakeholders, whether that be your PMO, project manager, team members, operations, and there's a number of ways we can accomplish this. Training can be used to reinforce project best practices and standards. We can use reports to allow the PMO and project managers to examine the health of individual projects or for their project portfolio. But what I want to talk about today is how the power of the new app model for Microsoft Project allows us to build applications that can address all of these needs for the different project stakeholders. For our session today, I spent a little bit of time exploring the Office and mobile stores. There's a number of apps available that target the needs of the project stakeholders. I've listed a few here, but I encourage you to check out the stores. There are many additional apps available, and we and other partners are continuously adding new apps. I think a quick overview of the App Store for Microsoft Project will provide some valuable insight to what these applications are and how they can help your organization. I'm going to start by talking about Office add-ins. We have used this slide in a few presentations to give an overview of an Office add-in. The important thing to note is that the Office add-in is implemented as a web application. And what this means to you as a user is that there's no need to install anything in your local environment. The applications will actually run on a separate web server, totally separate from your environment. And in our case, we host our Office add-ins on an Azure website. The only other component of an Office add-in is an app manifest file. This is an XML file that identifies the application to the Office Store. It contains information like the access level of the application needs and where the actual application is located. There are three types of applications for Microsoft Project. Content apps embed content into the document. So in this example that we're showing on the slide, the app places points on a map, and this map is embedded into the Excel document. Contextual apps can adjust their behavior depending on what the content of the actual Office document is. And in this example, we have a mail message here that has a address in it, and when the application recognizes an address, it pops up and maps a point and produces a map with that point on the map. However, we're totally focused on apps for Microsoft Project, and the only type of app supported by Microsoft Project is the Task Pane app. And the Task Pane app is an application that runs on the right-hand side of an Office application. So what exactly is this type of application? Well, I'll be showing an example of an Office add-in in a few minutes, but at a high level, an Office add-in is a web application. The power of this is that since it's a web application, we're able to use the power of a wide variety of web technologies when we're building our apps. I've identified a few here like HTML and JavaScript, but we can use a number of commercially and freely available web add-ins as well. These can offer features such as enhanced graphics and media support. But the real power for a project user is that this app model allows these web applications to communicate with the project plan. And in this case, I've deliberately shown the arrow from the project plan into the app because for Project 2013, apps were only able to read information about the selected task or the selected resource. Fortunately, the app model has been significantly enhanced for Project 2016, and we're now able to read the entire project plan and make updates to the project plan. And I'm going to show a demo of our Sensei Schedule Analyzer to give you an idea of what kind of functionality can be provided by this new app model. I'm now going to spend a few minutes demonstrating the functionality behind Office add-ins and show some functionality that's now available for Project 2016 using a new app that we developed, the Sensei Schedule Analyzer. You should now be seeing Project 2016. And what I want to show now is how you actually go and get an Office add-in. So if you see, I've selected the Project tab, and there's this my add-in drop-down. So if I just actually select that button rather than selecting the drop-down, it's going to bring up a dialog that shows the add-ins that I've currently purchased. And I can click the store to go and actually get Office add-ins from the store. But for this demonstration, I actually have the Sensei Schedule Analyzer that we're currently developing that should be in the store any day now. And I'll select it from our share folder. That's where you would put applications that you as an organization are developing. So I'll insert that into our Microsoft project plan. And it's going to open up to the right hand side of the project plan as a Task Pane app. So the Sensei Schedule Analyzer takes advantage of the new functionality that's available in Project 2016. So it's able to read through the entire project plan and do compliance checks on all the tasks that are in that project plan. So it does the compliance checks and then displays this information in a variety of formats. So I'm going to pause the carousel right now. So for example, here it's showing the number of tasks that are compliant and compared to the number that have issues. So we're actually doing quite well. Our project has 99% compliant and only has about 9 tasks that are have any major issues. And then down here, which displays a table that shows the tasks that have the most issues. We can also see a view of the issues by severity. So we have 9 issues, 17 warnings, and 13 messages. And then again, the table shows the tasks by the sorted by the number of compliance items. So I'm going to select issues and drill down and see what those issues are. So you can see right now that we have several tasks that have issues, and I'm going to look at this milestone, actually, the development plan completed milestone, and I'll expand that to see what the issues are on this task. So we see here that development development plan completed milestone has resources assigned, and since it's a milestone, that should not that's a compliance error. And the milestone actually should be completed since all of its prerequisite tasks are completed. So the Sensei Schedule Analyzer also takes advantage of the fact that we can now write back and update our project plan, and it allows us directly within the application to fix issues such as this. So we can say, okay, well, we know all the prerequisite tasks have been completed, so we're going to complete the milestone task. So I can just click Fix, and you'll see now that there's a checkbox added. So the deployment plan completed milestone has been marked as completed. So we can change the view so we see all of our items listed by check type. And I want to expand that issue that we had on the deployment plan completed milestone to see if there's anything else that also has the issue where resources are assigned to a milestone. We see here that there's actually 3 milestones that have resources assigned. And if you look over at the project plan, you see deployment plan completed has Johnny Eager, as well as project charter completed and wireframes completed. So we have the ability within the Sensei Schedule Analyzer to fix all of these issues with one button. So we just click here. It'll give us a warning message, and then we can select yes, and you'll see that all those assignments have been removed from your project plan. So what I really wanted to show here is what the Office add-in experience is like, the power that you can build within an Office add-in, and the functionality you can add for, in this case, your project manager. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about SharePoint add-ins. Like Office add-ins, SharePoint add-ins are web applications that can enhance the functionality of a SharePoint site. However, we as project partners are really interested in producing solutions for Microsoft Project Online and Project Server. Fortunately, what I'll be referring to as Project Server add-ins are just SharePoint add-ins that have the ability to access project data using either a JavaScript object model or a client-side object model. And the client-side object model uses either Visual Basic or C#. When using these new object models, you're able to build a single code base that works with both Project Online and Project Server. So for us, that's a real strength of SharePoint add-ins, is that we can build one solution and then have that market that solution to everybody that's using either Project Online or Project Server. And again, our goal is to build apps that are for everyone using Project. As I mentioned with Office add-ins, since these are web applications, they can embrace all the available web technologies, and REST, JavaScript, HTML. And I don't have any fancy slides for the SharePoint add-ins, but I think the best way to show what they are and how they work is to do actually a demo. And we'll do that of one of our applications, the Sensei Bulk Update app. I think you should be seeing my Project Online tenant right now. I want to use this to show a little bit about the SharePoint add-in experience. So the first thing I want to talk about is where you actually find the SharePoint add-ins. So what we'll need to do is actually go into the site contents for this site. And when we do that, you'll see that site contents has your normal standard contents, your lists, but it also has these applications that I've added. So later on, we're going to actually look a little bit at our Sensei Bulk Update application. But before we do that, I want to show the experience of actually obtaining an app, a SharePoint add-in app. So I'll click on the Add an App, and you'll see on the left-hand side here that there's a few options. I'll briefly talk about a couple of them here. Apps you can add are applications that have already been added to my environment and from your organization. So if your organization is building their own SharePoint add-ins, you can actually put those into an app catalog within your organization and add them to your site as well. But I won't get into that. What I want to talk about here is the experience with the SharePoint store. So if you have Project Online, all this is set up for you out of the box. There is some configuration work needs to be done to access the SharePoint store if you're on premise. But let's click on the SharePoint store, and it's going to link me there. And I want to show the experience obtaining an app using an app from our friends at Projectum, the People Picker. And there it is there. So this is an app that adds a resource drop down to any of your PDPs. So I'm not going to get too much into the functionality. What I really want to show is the actual purchase experience. So we could buy it at $200, but we could also try it. So I'm going to click the try button and try it for the free for 30 days. So we do that, and it gives us a confirmation message. Since we're just trying it, I'll say that's fine. We'll continue. It gives us just another notification message, and we do want to add this app to our project web through our project PWA site. So next thing, what I actually wanted to show you is it asks us to trust the People Picker. So this is really a strong feature of SharePoint add-ins, is that it only allows these add-ins to do the permissions that we grant it. So we can look through this list and see that it needs some basic information about our site. It needs some write access to data in all of our projects, and it needs to be able to read reported data for projects. So if we're happy with that, we can go and we can trust it. So once we do that, it's going to actually go and load this application in our PWA environment. So while that's running, I'm going to actually show you what a SharePoint add-in can look like using our Sensei bulk update application. I'll just click here and we'll launch it. So you should be seeing our Sensei bulk update application. So there's actually several versions of this in the Office store. And the idea here is that these are applications that allow you to apply updates across a number of projects. So I'll show a little bit of the functionality, but I also want to show a little bit about the features of SharePoint add-ins while I'm doing that. So you notice at the top is what I want to talk about a little bit here. This is actually a SharePoint hosted app, but you'll notice it's actually being hosted on its own isolated website. So whether your SharePoint add-in is SharePoint hosted or whether it's provided hosted, it's actually not going to run in the same environment as your Project Online or Project Server environment. So therefore we have some code isolation. So I'm going to run this application, and I'm going to actually select all projects. So what we're able to do here with our applications, we're able to go back to the PWA data and then read all the project information, and you can see that came up fairly quickly. And I'm not going to select all of them. I'm just going to select a few projects that we want to do a mass update to, and select next. And then we have the choice of what fields, custom fields, we want to update. So I'm going to just do a couple here. I'm going to update our investment category, and maybe just the text field justification. I just want to briefly show some of the functionalities available with SharePoint add-ins. So here within our application, we can decide, okay, well, I want to make these 5 products that I chose to be all investment category of Run Your Business. So I can select Apply to All, select Run, and then I'm going to add a couple of new descriptions here for the justification, and I'm just going to put that that is part of the virtual conference demo. And I'll put that probably in all 3 of these. And then I can go and publish these updates. So this is what it's going to actually do, is go check these projects out, make these changes, and then publish them back to Project, in our case, Project Online. So what it's doing now is it's going to do the publishing. It's waiting to actually get a response back from Project Online to see if these projects have been actually published. You can see the first one, we didn't make any changes, so there's no changes. The other ones are saying that they're actually currently publishing the changes to Project Online. And we can see here that these changes have been saved. I'm not going to wait for them all to complete. Actually, this one seems to have a problem, but the idea here is that you can go through and make all these changes in bulk. So the point I wanted to make here is that this is actually an application, a web application that runs totally separate from your project online or project server environment. It has access to your project data and your project content. It can either read that information, so read all those projects, or it can make updates to those projects, and it can do things. It can provide functionality like publishing your projects. So it can provide a huge amount of power when interfacing with project online or project server. We formed Sensei Project Solutions about 3.5 years ago, and it's no coincidence that this coincided with Microsoft's announcement of the Office Store and then what was being called Apps for Office or Apps for SharePoint. We had some previous experience providing solutions for Project Server and Project Client and the Microsoft Project Client. But the problem we had with these solutions was typically we were selling these organizations that we already had relationships with. And even when we deployed these solutions, we were struggled to make sure that our customers obtained our updates in a timely manner, and then making sure that everybody was running the most recent versions of the application. And we often were supporting multiple versions of our solutions. The Office Store makes our applications easily discoverable by customers. As I showed when I was demoing Office and SharePoint add-ins, the store experience leveraged directly within the application. So in the case with Project on the Client, it's within your Project tab, or within your site contents in Project Online or Project Server. The Office Store infrastructure also supports updates of applications. For Office add-ins, if we publish our updates to the hosted web application, the customer can immediately benefit from those updates. For a SharePoint hosted application, the app administrator will be informed that there's an update available, and then they can choose when they want to apply those updates. Microsoft has also supported enterprise purchasing features such as subscription support and site licenses for the SharePoint add-ins. So I'm just going to show you a screenshot that I took of the actual. This is the Office Apps for Office. And you notice there's a link here that goes to project, and that will bring up some project-related Office add-ins. What I want to point out here, if you look at some of the applications, is we'll actually show any applications that work with Microsoft projects. So not all of these applications have specific project-related functionality. For example, our Sensei project dashboard actually goes out and gets information from the related PWA sites, so risks, issues, deliverables, that kind of information. But a lot of these other ones, such as the dictionaries, do not specifically have project-related functionality. So you need to be aware of that. So if we look at the integrated store for SharePoint, if we select the SharePoint option, there's actually no specific link directly to applications for Project Server or Project Online. So what I typically do is I'll search for project or schedule to find information that relates to Microsoft Project Online and Project Server. And you can see we've listed a few of the. It comes up pretty much with a lot of the project-related SharePoint apps. So how does the Microsoft Office Store support our idea of Microsoft Project for everyone? As I mentioned earlier, we did build some solutions prior to the Microsoft Office Store, and the problem we had is those solutions were being sold and marketed basically in our geographic area to customers that we already had relationships with. So what we have found when we put our applications now on the Office Store is that we're getting purchases, still a large degree of purchases with customers that we already have relationships with, but we are also seeing purchases from a wide variety of geographic countries and companies in geographic locations. So I've actually chosen these countries a little bit randomly, but we have seen customers' inquiries from Brazil and Australia, Africa, Europe. So our applications are no longer just being sold within our own geographic reach, but are extending much beyond that. So now that we're selling our our applications in a much larger geographic region, we have some considerations to make. We can offer promotional based pricing within the Office store to say, okay, well, in a certain market where we're just introducing our product, we can make that product available at a special promotional price. And we also need to support multiple languages. We can sell our applications English only in multiple stores, but to get the most to make projects available for everyone, we really need to support multiple languages. And we've typically done this through the support of some of our international partners. So if you're using Visual Studio and you're having provider-hosted SharePoint apps or Office add-ins, you can use some of the built-in resource functionality within Visual Studio. When we built a few SharePoint-hosted applications, and in those cases we needed to create our own resource handling for the different languages. But certainly, it's important to know when you're building applications that you build that infrastructure to support multiple languages. So today I wanted to introduce you to Office and SharePoint add-ins and give you an idea of how they could be used to enhance the functionality of Microsoft Project on your desktop, Project Online, and Project Server on-premise. I also wanted to show how we are using these apps to address the needs of our project stakeholders and how we're building apps that address these needs globally, well beyond what we typically were able to reach before the introduction of the Office store. So we still have some time, and I wanted to take that time to provide a high-level overview of some of the development considerations when we're building apps for Office and SharePoint. Keeping with our theme of project for everyone, we want to make sure we're building applications that support the maximum possible number of users. And there's a number of interfaces that we as developers can use to access and update project content. But if we choose our interfaces carefully, we can create a single code base that supports both Project Online and Project Server on-premise. And hopefully you recall that both Office add-ins and SharePoint add-ins are web applications. This means that we have the ability to create some code libraries that may be able to be used within multiple applications to maximize code reuse. So it may be possible to have, say for example, a JavaScript code library that we can use in multiple of our SharePoint add-ins, and maybe even be used in some of our Office add-ins. I've added here a point about varying offerings. Admittedly, this is not something that we're doing currently, and the idea here is that you may want to think about having a Office add-in or a SharePoint add-in that has different offering levels. So you might want to have a light level as well as a professional level. This gives you the ability to maybe customize the functionality available depending on the project stakeholder that's using it. So potentially a project manager may not need the same level of functionality that a PMO or executive would need. But like I said, admittedly, that's not something that we're currently doing. So now I'm going to take a brief look at the technologies that are available to interface with Project Server and Project Online. If you previously worked with Project Server solutions, you may be familiar with the Project Server interface or the PSI. This is a collection of service interfaces that allow you to access and update configuration content in the Project Server, configuration and content in the Project Server environment. I say Project Server because it's not supported for Project Online. So if you're looking to build a solution that has a maximum possible reach, we probably should avoid using the PSI. And I'll look at some alternative interfaces shortly. But one thing I will say is currently the PSI still supports the most functionality of any of our interfaces, programming interfaces. So if you are building an in-house on-premise solution, the PSI is possibly something you could still consider. I've also listed the SQL Server database here. This is traditionally how we supported our custom reporting needs within Project Server, but like the PSI, direct access to the SQL Server database is not supported in Project Online. So instead we use OData service, what we call the Project Server reporting service, to access the reporting data we need for reports and some of our applications. So what are the interfaces we should be using if we want to support both Project Server and Project Online? We have a couple of different object models. The client-side object model allows developers to access the project objects using either C# or Visual Basic. The client-side object model can be used for server-side code if you're building your provider-hosted solutions. We've also used the what we call CSOM when we were building web applications, and in our case we've built some Windows applications. Sorry, we built some Windows applications. In our case, we built Windows applications that interfaced the business systems for some of our clients. So being able to take some data from one business system and import that into Project Online. If you want to provide solutions that run totally client-side, you'd build this what we call a SharePoint hosted solution, and that would use the JavaScript object model, or JSOM. The functionality of the JavaScript object model parallels that of the client-side object model, but we're going to when we use the JavaScript object model, we're interfacing using JavaScript code. The last technology I want to talk about is the Project Server reporting service. So this is an OData web service that can be used to access reporting data from Project Online and Project Server. This is the type of data that we typically would have got from the SQL Server database when we wanted database. So this can be accomplished using this web request, and I've created the shown here a sample of the URL that you'd use. So you would start with your PWA site, and then you would add the API, and then finally the project data endpoint. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually show you how you can do this even within the browser. So I quickly wanted to show you how you would build a web request to get the Project Server data. So you see here in the IE browser that I've started with the URL for our PWA site, and to that I'll add the endpoints, the API, and then project data endpoint, and then I will add the entities that I want to get. In this case, I'll get projects, and then I'll make that request, and you'll see that it will come back with XML with a whole bunch of our project data in our test environment. And you can get other information available as well. You can get resources, and that will return the resources in your Project Online or Project Server on-premise environment. We can do tasks as well. So there's a lot of more OData functionality that's probably a little bit beyond our session today. You can do things like filtering, just select specifically the projects, resources, or tasks you want. You can use select statements to only get particular fields you want. So I would encourage you, I'm going to add some resources at the end of our session to go look up some of these resources if you want to get more information on OData. But I just want to give you an idea of some of the web requests that you can make to get data from Project Online and Project Server. So what development environments would you use if you were building apps for SharePoint or SharePoint add-ins or Office add-ins? Because they're web applications, you can use pretty much any development environment you want, but I would highly recommend using Visual Studio. SharePoint and Office add-in support is available, I think, in any version from 2012. But anything from 2012, I'm going to show you actually the interface in Visual Studio 2015. So Visual Studio has templates for Office add-ins as well as SharePoint add-ins. It has a full debugging experience, so full F5 support. You can hit F5, it will actually deploy your SharePoint add-in or your Office add-in. It will bring up Microsoft Product on your desktop if it's an Office add-in. It will bring up PWA site on your browser if it's a SharePoint add-in, and it will allow you to put breakpoints in so you have full debugging experience. And we have support for C#, Visual Basic, as well as JavaScript interfaces. So I'm going to show in a couple of minutes actually how these interfaces within Visual Studio. The other point I had here is about mobile app development. So this is actually something we're in the process of exploring, so I don't have too much to add about this, but there is now cross-platform development support for mobile apps in Visual Studio. So it's possible, so it should now be possible to share code for your business logic between Android, iOS, and Windows app. We're actually now in the process of trying to build some mobile apps using this technology. So hopefully by the time I do my next presentation, I'll be able to give you a little bit more information on that. So now we're going to jump out and do a demo of the Visual Studio development environment and how that works with SharePoint and Office add-ins. So I'm now going to, I hope you're seeing Visual Studio 2015. I'm now going to show you a little bit of the built-in support for apps for Office and Office add-ins and SharePoint add-ins. I'm going to leave it as a very simple example, but I'm hoping to give you an idea of the built-in support. So we're going to start off by creating an Office add-in. So if I go in here and I do File, New Project, you'll see that one of the templates that's available is if you go into Visual C# apps, there's an apps for Office. Actually, so I can select that, and I'll call it, I guess, Virtual Demo, and select OK. So it already knows a little bit about Office add-ins. It's going to ask me what type of an application I'm building. I'm going to build a task pane application. It's going to ask me what Office applications I want to support. In this case, I just want to support Project. And then I click Finish. And then it's going to actually go out and build what I would refer to as a Hello World type application. And what this application does is it simply takes the selected text in your document, whether that be Word, Excel, or in our case Project, and replicates it in the application. So there's not a whole lot of functionality here, but it gives you an idea of some of the built-in support within Visual Studio. So I'll actually show you the code. I'll click on that. So here it comes in. Once the Office document is ready, it's going to do this app initialize, and it's going to go and get the data asynchronously. So that's one of the big advantages, actually, I haven't mentioned with Office add-ins, is that content's retrieved asynchronously, so it does not affect the performance of the hosting Office application. And then once we get the data from the project, in our case, in the project plan, we're going to just rewrite it out onto the Office add-in. So let's just run that. And what's the nice thing about it is we already have the built-in support that it's going to compile this, deploy it into the environment, and bring up Project. So we'll bring up Microsoft Project, and I'll just bring up one of my test projects here, and I'll select this Gather Business Requirements. Now I'm going to actually open up our debugging, the Office add-in that we're debugging. You'll see if I go to the My Project tab, My Add-ins, we now have this virtual demo app that we're debugging. So if I click on that, it's going to bring up that application. And then if I click on the Get Data from Selection, it should show in the bottom this Get Business Requirements. And there you go. So a very simple example of the kind of the built-in support. But what I want to also show is that this offers full debugging support. So I can throw some breakpoints in here if I want to get some more information about what's going on in the Office add-in. So let's start it again with a breakpoint. So very much in the same way, we come up, I open up my project plan, go into projects, and open up my debugging, the Office add-in that I'm debugging. And when I hit the Get Data from Selection, we should now hit our breakpoint. So we can go in here and we can use the watch to get some of this Office data. I can go and see what's in Office context document, for example. Let me just copy that over and watch that. And we can kind of see the information that's available there. So it allows you that full debugging experience for an Office add-in. But now I'm going to show you actually this is also available if you want to open up create a new. Let's close down this one, and we'll create a Office SharePoint add-in. So now we're going to create a SharePoint add-in. So much the same way, we go in here, we do a File, New, Project, and instead of doing the app for Office. I'm going to do an app for SharePoint. The old name of these were apps for Office and app for SharePoint. They're now called Office add-ins and SharePoint add-ins, but they haven't been changed yet in Visual Studio 2015. So here I'll just call I guess virtual SharePoint, for example, and click OK. Then it's going to ask me what PWA environment that we want to go after, and whether we want to do provider hosted or SharePoint hosted. So if it's provider hosted, we'd have the ability to create some server-side code. I'll leave it at SharePoint hosted for the time being, and then we'll connect to our Project Online environment. Let's see, hope that works. And we wanted to support the Project Online version. That's probably fine for this demo. If you want to support older versions of Project Server 2013, you can select that. But for our demo, this should be fine. We're actually writing it against the Project Online environment. And so you see here, it's actually gone and built a web application. And I mentioned earlier about the map manifest file. I can just take a quick peek of what it created there. So it just basically has a title for your application, a name, and then where that application is located. So this was what goes into the Office store, so it knows where to find your application. But I'm not going to spend too much time on that. We'll look at what what's actually going on in the default page. It's just initializing it, and then it has some JavaScript code in apps.js, so we can see what's in there. And some very simple code. And this is actually just SharePoint code. So it's going off, it's finding the SharePoint user, it's getting the username, and then it's printing out that username. So let's just go and run that application so you can see what debugging features we have within SharePoint add-in. So I'll run that. So what it's doing now is it's actually deploying this application to your SharePoint environment. There's actually a little bit more that you have to do. You have to actually set up a SharePoint development environment, and I'll provide some references at the end of our session on how you do that. But for simplicity, I've already done that, and we're just going to go on and install our application into my SharePoint Online environment, and just to show you how that actually works, and as a developer, how easy it is to integrate with Visual Studio 2015. So this sometimes takes a little while. I think it's installed now, and I will add. So I'll log in. And what it's going to do, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask me whether I accept the permission levels for this application. And I think this application just has, oh, it's not going to do that. So the application just comes up and says, hello, Sarah Davis. So just basically regurgitating the information for the username. So fairly straightforward again. And as with the Office add-in, we can throw some breakpoints here to get some more information. So I'll actually do that right here so we can see some more information about the user. So we can go in here. It again is going to invoke it. Enter my username and password. And see, now we have a breakpoint here, so we can do some debugging if we need to. And what I'll do here, just to show you what we can do, is also examine the user object. And you see what methods are available on that. You can do a get name, get ID, get email. So it gives you an idea of the functionality of that user object. But really what I wanted to accomplish during our demos was just to show you that if you're doing apps, SharePoint add-ins or Office add-ins, it's really beneficial to use Visual Studio because it has that built-in support. So I think that's pretty much it for our session today. My goal today was to relate some of our experience experiences developing apps for Microsoft Project. Uh, it's our goal to build applications that address the needs of our project stakeholders, and our ultimate goal, of course, is to provide a suite of applications that make project more accessible to all of its users. We've discussed some of the app model for Office and SharePoint add-ins, and how the app model, along with the integrated store, supports our goal of providing applications to the largest possible audience. Finally, we've briefly discussed some of the technical considerations for building these apps. I've included what I consider a few useful links for if you want to get more information about Office and SharePoint add-ins. My first place to go would be the Office Development Center, and lots of great information about Office and SharePoint add-ins, project development for 2013, and Project Online and Project Server. MSDM forums, lots of questions there, some great information, and MSDM blogs. I would go there often there's some great blogs as well, specific information about development issues with Microsoft Project and SharePoint. And for some courses and live events, I would definitely recommend that you check out the Microsoft Virtual Academy. So I think I'll now open up the floor for any questions. Thanks for your time today.